Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome everybody to the August 6th Michigan City Council meeting. We will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and prayer. And in your prayer this evening, please remember the shooting victims of El Paso, Texas, Dayton, Ohio, and Jim Meyer. Our city attorney is not here this evening, or council attorney is not here this evening because his sister passed away. So keep her in your prayers also.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Sonna, take the roll call, please.
Mr. Beatrice?
Present.
Ms. Carnes?
Present.
Mr. Dabney?
Present.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Present.
Mr. Hamilton?
Present.
Mr. Prezebulinski?
Present.
Ms. Silvis?
Present.
Mr. Simmons?
Present.
And Mr. Stemley?
Present.
We have 9 present and no one absent.
Thank you, Ms. Nyland. Everyone has received a copy of the regular meeting minutes of July 16th, 2019. Any corrections? Is there a motion to accept?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilman Beatrice.
I'll make an amendment.
You can't approve the minutes. They have to be your amendment.
I thought I could read them into when I do the finance committee reports. Okay.
Okay. All right.
All right. I was just alerted that I have to read in a correction to the minutes, finance committee meeting minutes from our last meeting. When I read the finance committee minutes, the totals of the dollars that were spent were correct, but there were 2 items that were left off the Riverboat Fund. There were 2 EFT payments, $300,000 out of the Riverboat Fund to the Promise Scholarship, and $650,000 to MVHF, Operation Pavement Preservation. So those need to be read into those minutes, and I make the motion that we approve those minutes with the new corrections. Support.
There was a new motion by Councilman Dabney and support by Councilman Beatrice. All those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. No opposed. Okay. So then, Gail, Ms. Nyla, do we have to approve the minutes?
No, they're approved.
July 16th, or does that take care of it?
Those are approved as amended, so we're okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Reports of standing committees. Are there any reports of standing committees?
Yes.
Oh, Councilwoman Carnes?
Yes, I have a report of the 7/31 meeting of the Michigan City Common Council Planning and Zoning Committee. Chairperson Sharon Carnes called the meeting to order at 5:03 p.m. in the EOC at City Hall. Members present, Sharon Carnes, Ron Hamilton. Members absent, Tim Beatrice. Also in attendance were City Council President Don Pribolinski, City Council members Johnny Stinley, Gene Simmons, Sean Fitzpatrick. Building Commissioner Sue Downs, Code Enforcement Officer Christine Vanderborg, and members of the public. The purpose of the workshop was to discuss recommendation of an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Michigan City, Indiana, creating Article 15 in Chapter 22 entitled Landlord Registration Program and Rental Safety Inspection and Verification Program. Ron Hamilton stated his opposition to the ordinance, stating that we just need to enforce existing codes. Sharon Carnes proposed amending the ordinance to remove 2 whereas clauses dealing with the lead program and changing section 22803A as follows. A person within a 50-mile radius of Michigan City authorized to manage the rental unit. Don Pribolinski stated his concerns about funding for the extra personnel, stating that it should come from the general fund and not out of the Riverboat Fund. He further expressed his belief that the fines are excessive. Sean Fitzpatrick stated his concerns about landlords getting out of the business and displacement of tenants. Gene Simmons expressed his concerns about funding. Johnny Stimley stated that even if the ordinance did not pass, he wanted code enforcement people. Summary of other issues and comments. There are many slumlords in Michigan City and tenants living in unsafe conditions. If landlords can't keep up with their property, they should sell. The ordinance is unfair and will drive landlords out of business. Renters damage property. Concerns about the International Property Code requiring extensive renovations. Concerns about nitpicking inspections. Ordinance could be used as a weapon. Go back to the Uniform Building Code. Landlords can't make a profit. Nothing new in the ordinance. Code enforcement cannot enter a building unless there is a verifiable complaint about the safety of the building. Tenants are afraid to report violations because they can be evicted. Cities that have passed the ordinance find the housing quality improves. An eviction process takes too long. The ordinance would harm low-income renters by causing an increase in rents. Committee member Ron Hamilton expressed concerns about the defective paint section and asked that it be removed. Committee member Ron Hamilton moved to give an unfavorable recommendation of the ordinance to the City Council. That motion died for lack of second. Therefore, there is no recommendation made to the City Council from the Planning and Zoning Committee. Meeting adjourned at 5:59 p.m.
Thank you, Councilwoman Carnes. Councilman Dabney?
All right. I have two Finance Committee meetings to report on here. The first, July 23rd, the purpose of that meeting was to discuss the ordinance approving additional appropriation in the budget of the Boyd Development Fund to provide funding for the purchase of decorative trash receptacles for the city. The meeting was called to order that day at 5:23 p.m. by Chairman Dabney to discuss the ordinance itself and the $30,000 funding of the ordinance. Committee members Beatrice and Prespolinski were present, as well as council members Fitzpatrick and Stinley. Also present were City Controller Rich Murphy, Personnel Director Andrea Smith, City Attorney Jim Myers, General Manager of the Sanitary District Mike Cuss, and there were three members there from the public. After discussion regarding the funding, placement, look of the trash receptacles, number of trash receptacles 30, and placement throughout the city, the Finance Committee moved to send this ordinance back to the entire City Council with a 2-1 favorable recommendation. Councilman Dabney, and Beatrice voted in favor, and Councilman Prespolinski needed more information in regards to that, so he was the nay vote at the time. Upon a motion by Councilman Beatrice and a second by Councilman Prespolinski, the meeting was adjourned at 6:08 p.m. Okay. Tonight's August 6th Finance Committee meeting was called to order at 6 o'clock p.m. on the dot by Chairman Dabney to review the claims since our last meeting. Committee members Beatrice and Prespolinski were present, as well as council members Carnes, Simmons, and Fitzpatrick. City Controller Rich Murphy was unable to attend. Claims reviewed totaled $145,044.72 from the Riverboat Fund and $5,462.30 from the Boyd Development Fund for a total claim docket of $150,507.02. There were no questions or concerns with invoices paid. And then Councilman Prespolinski moved to recommend approval of the docket with a second by Councilman Beatrice, and that motion was approved unanimously. And upon a motion by Councilman Beatrice and a second by Councilman Prespolinski, the meeting was adjourned at 6:02 p.m. So we're getting more efficient back there, I guess. The summary of claims goes as follows. From the Riverboat Fund, Action Fence Company, $11,182 even. Global Engineering and Land Surveying, $89,396.75. KMH Systems, $32,095 even. SEH of Indiana LLC, $9,172.37. US Optics, $3,198.60 for a total, once again from the Riverboat, $145,044.72. From the Boyd Development Fund, Kia Bergson, $3,000. Butler, Fairman, and Seaford, Inc., $1,302.60. George M. Prelwitz, $666.70. Reprographic Arts, $493 even, for a total from the Boyd Development Fund of $5,462.30. And that was a total docket, once again, of $150,507.02. And that concludes the Finance Committee report.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. A couple standing committees that I am a liaison to that I'd like to report on. And the first one is the Arts Commission. And last week they had, it's called their celebration for Sculpt Fusion. And what they're doing is celebrating and promoting awareness of the art statues that are in the downtown area. And also they're going to start placing art south of the South Shore tracks in the Midtown area. So we had that, and Mr. Tim Haas donated the use of his business building for that event. So I want to thank him for that. And I'm also the liaison to the Human Rights Commission, and we had our meeting this evening before the council meeting. And just to let everyone know that the Human Rights Commission is having a fundraiser at Five Guys hamburger business down on South Franklin Street, and 20% of your purchase will go to the Human Rights Commission, and if you buy a milkshake, a whole $1 goes to the Human Rights Commission. And that'll be taking place tomorrow, August the 7th. So if you get hungry, and it's going to be all day. There's not a certain time frame. So if you get hungry, you want to get a hamburger, go down there, and all the donations will be made to the Human Rights Commission. Just tell them you want to donate your 20% to the Human Rights Commission, and that'll be done. And that group does a fantastic job for the city, and the majority of their funds are donated to them. They go out and they raise the money. So they need all the backing that the city can give them. And with that, moving on, reports of special or select committees. I don't think there's any this evening. And reports of other city officers and departments. And Mr. Cuss is here to talk to us this evening about the purchase of the decorative trash receptacles throughout the city.
Pardon?
I got this free bonus clip when I got up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you again for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. It's always a pleasure. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you face to face. I want to talk a little bit about the aesthetically pleasing trash receptacles. Mayor Muir asked the sanitary district to inventory these receptacles in the uptown and midtown areas of the city and along Michigan Boulevard. He wanted us to identify any receptacles that were damaged and in need of replacement. This assessment identified a total of 51 receptacles, of which 10 were damaged and needed to be replaced. There were 7 on Michigan Boulevard. Those have already been all removed. There's 1 at 8th and Spring and 2 on 11th between Pine and Franklin. The mayor asked the district to obtain quotes for matching / similar trash receptacles so that the damaged receptacles could be replaced. He asked that the quote include 30 additional receptacles. The thought was we would put 25 new ones out throughout the areas, midtown areas, uptown areas, and along the boulevard, because many of the businesses and residents were clamoring for these receptacles, for new ones. We also thought we'd have 5 extra that we could use to replace if something got damaged, and then also those could be used for special events that we could move around for special events if necessary. Therefore, the total that needed to be purchased came to 40. A map was provided to the city council members with the location of all the receptacles and the locations where we wanted to place the 25 new receptacles. I think I sent that to you on July 30th, I believe, so about a week ago. Extensive research was conducted by the sanitary district personnel to identify trash receptacles that matched or were similar to some of the ones we have throughout the Franklin Street and the Michigan Boulevard area. That were aesthetically pleasing. You would think that was an easy task, and it really wasn't. We were able to find 2 sources that had such trash receptacles. One was Granger out of Northbrook, Illinois, and the other one was Trash Can Warehouse out of Brattleboro, Vermont. We requested quotes from both. Granger's quote came in for 40 receptacles at $32,710.80, and Trash Can Warehouse came in about $4,400 cheaper at $28,305.83. So after evaluating the quotes and working with the city attorney and Councilman Beatry, prepared an ordinance that requests the funds for the 40 trash receptacles. I trust that you'll support this effort. And speaking to Mr. President Prespolinski, for sure, I know he always talks about trying to keep the main quarters of Michigan City looking good and clean, and get several calls from him every year to get this fixed and get that fixed, and what about this? And so we appreciate that. Actually, it helps the city, helps us keep us on our toes, and helps the city continue to look nice. So I also believe that he shares the goal, you all probably all share the goal with Mayor Muir, that we need to keep the city clean and looking as good as possible everywhere we can. So that's what I had, and if there's any other questions, I could certainly answer those.
Does the council members have any questions? Councilman Stimley?
The only question I had, I know you were saying 40 receptacles. Was that supposed to be 30 or?
No, it was 40. At the finance committee meeting, I said 30 and I was wrong.
Okay,
It was 40. Sorry. I corrected that. I sent you guys all a note. So.
Any other questions from the council members?
Which vendor did you ultimately go with?
Well, we haven't gone with anyone yet because we're waiting for the
Okay.
the ordinance to pass. But I mean, it would make no sense to spend $4,400 extra, for something like that. So
Just checking on that.
Yeah.
Councilman Beatry?
One of the members of the community that was there at our committee meeting was Elena Ursita. I never got a chance to talk to her. I wish I had, because I appreciated her being there and I appreciated the input that she provided. She later followed that up with a letter with a lot of suggestions, and that's the kind of public input that we really appreciate. So I don't know if she's out there, but I appreciate what she did to help us out. I got a letter back, I think we all did, from Mike Cuss, who addressed some of the concerns that she had, and I appreciate that as well. You went above and beyond and explained exactly why, the rationale for the decisions that you'd made, and I'm in agreement with them. So thank you.
Well, I appreciated her letter also, and I was thinking maybe the next time we start these research projects, trying to find low quotes, maybe we'll contact her first and probably save us some time. But she did a nice job. So.
Any other questions? Okay.
Okay, thanks again.
Thank you, Superintendent Cuss. No other reports of city officers or departments. The claims docket in Fund 2042, the Riverboat claims, it's a total of $145,044.72. And in the Boyd Development Fund 2032, claims are for $5,462.30. Is there a motion to accept the claims?
Motion to pay claims. Support.
Motion to pay claims and seconded by Councilman Dabney. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Claims to be paid. Ms. Nyla, are there any petitions before us this evening?
There are no petitions.
Communications?
Correspondence was received in the clerk's office on July 15th, July 22nd, and July 29th from DLZ Weekly Activity Report for ESG Energy Project. Correspondence was also received in the clerk's office on July 16th from Joyce Dalton, President of the Historic Review Board, Elston Grove Street Lighting. Correspondence received in the clerk's office on July 17th from John Kirk, DLZ Field Observation Report on ESG solar panel projects at Fire Station Number 4 and Patriot Park. Correspondence was received in the clerk's office on July 24th from Mayor Ron Muir, potential municipal merger town of Pottawatomie Park into City of Michigan City, Indiana. Correspondence was also received on July 28th from Paul Reitz, Energy System Group, NIPSCO Energy Efficiency Program for Michigan City Central Maintenance. Correspondence was received in the clerk's office on July 25th from Arthur Payne, Chairperson of Social Status of African American Males, appointing Mr. T.J. Lenore to the Youth Leadership Commission. Correspondence was also received in the clerk's office on July 30th from Kathy Catherine Stransky. Further development of Westcott Park. Correspondence received in the clerk's office on July 30th from Mike Cuss, General Manager, Sanitary District of Michigan City. Proposed trash receptacles. Correspondence received in the clerk's office on July 30th from Hannah Hammond Hagman, Lebesnick Center for Arts, appointing Miss Charity Smith to the Youth Leadership Commission. And the last received in the clerk's office was August 1st from Alina Bersida, decorative trash receptacles.
Thank you, Ms. Nyland. And going back to the correspondence from Mrs. Joyce Dalton, President of the Historic Review Board, and I know that Mrs. Dalton is here this evening. I did bring that correspondence with me, and I was going to bring it up under council comments. So yeah, so the council could address, what took place there. So I'd like to do that, and that'll be towards the end of the meeting. Okay. All right. Thank you. Ms. Nyland, our first resolution before us this evening by title only, without objection.
A resolution by title only, a resolution increasing and decreasing certain appropriations within the budget of the Michigan City Public Art Committee in the General Fund 1001 for the year 2019 in Michigan City, Indiana. And this is introduced by Mr. Dabney.
And does the author have anything that he would like to add?
Just a simple transfer of funds, no increase in any funding or anything like that, $4,500 decrease, other supplies, and then an increase to contractual services salaries of the same amount, $4,500.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to comment on this resolution? Anyone from the public wish to speak on this resolution? Anyone from the public wish to speak on this resolution? Having none, are there any council comments? Councilwoman Carnes?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Are there any other comments from the council? Any other council comments? There's been a motion to approve and seconded. Ms. Nylam on the vote?
Mr. Beatrice?
Aye.
Mr. Dabney?
Aye.
Ms. Carnes?
Aye.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Prespolinski?
Aye.
Ms. Silvas?
Aye.
Mr. Simmons?
Aye.
And Mr. Stemley. We have 9 in favor and no one opposed.
Thank you, Ms. Nylam. Our second resolution, by title only, without objection.
A resolution by title only approving and authorizing the submittal of 2019 through 2023 consolidated and citizen participation plans to HUD and authorizing expenditure of CDBG grant funds. And this is also introduced by Mr. Dabney.
And does the author have anything you'd like to add at this time?
Yeah, I'll just read a couple of things that I highlighted within the resolution here. The Community Development Block Grant, the 2019 through 2023 Consolidated Plan, and Citizenship Participation Plan that outlines the 5-year strategy to address the city's goals for housing, jobs, and services for lower income residents in order to be eligible to receive additional monies that are going to be given to us here. We're going to be receiving $660,257 of these CDBG funds going to be administered by HUD during 2019, and there is no match requirement of the city, so these funds will be here to be used for the community block grant, and I'm really happy. This is just a personal note. This is something I've been looking forward to in getting this money out because I live on the east side of town, and this money can be used. Growing up on the east side of town, actually, I won't give my age, but all the years I've been on the east side, and I see the need for home improvements in houses on the east side. And I'm just looking forward to us starting to get this program moving forward where people can receive money for these home improvements and help us improve that neighborhood. It's going to be applicable throughout the city as well, but obviously living and growing up in the Eastport neighborhood, that's really close to my heart. So I'm really looking forward to this. That's why I decided to sponsor this resolution.
Thank you, Councilman Dabney. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this resolution? Anyone from the public wish to speak on this resolution? Anyone from the public wish to speak on this resolution? Having none, are there any council comments? Any council comments? Any council comments? Motion?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion to approve by Councilwoman Carnes and seconded by Councilman Dabney. Ms. Nyla on the vote, please.
Mr. Dabney?
Aye.
Ms. Carnes?
Aye.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Preselinski?
Aye.
Ms. Silvas?
Aye.
Mr. Simmons?
Aye.
Mr. Stemley?
Aye.
And Mr. Beatrice?
Aye.
We have 9 in favor and no one opposed.
Thank you, Ms. Nyla. And our first ordinance on second reading this evening by title only without objection, Ms. Nyla.
An ordinance on second reading by title only, an ordinance vacating portions of 2 public water sanitation easements in the city of Michigan City and contained entirely within the property generally known as the Blue Chip Casino Hotel and Spa. And this is introduced by Mr. Simmons and Ms. Carnes.
And do the authors have anything that they'd like to add at this time? Okay. There will be a formal public hearing this evening on this ordinance. Is there anyone here from the public that wishes to speak on this ordinance? Anyone here from the public wish to speak on this ordinance? Anyone here from the public wish to speak on this ordinance? Public portion is now closed. This ordinance, or any council comments? Any council comments? Any council comments? This ordinance will be held over for third reading at our next council meeting. And Ms. Nyla, our second ordinance on second reading?
An ordinance on second reading by title only, approving additional appropriation in the budget of the Riverboat Fund for expenses incurred by the Michigan City Park Department for the Michigan City Municipal Golf Course. And this is introduced by Mr. Dabney.
And I also would like to say that a formal public hearing will be held this evening on this ordinance. Councilman Dabney?
Okay, this additional appropriation in the amount of $125,000. There was a heated discussion at the last meeting in regards to this, but, you know, it's by law, city department like this, we cannot run in the negative. So I heard people coming to the microphone saying how big a waste of money this was, but we cannot run in the negative in these city departments. So we had to do this appropriation to cover the $125,000. So I just wanted to put that out there, and part of the reason we're in this situation, we've had 103 days lost play out at the golf courses due to weather. Hopefully, you know, we'll be able to make some of this up in November and things like that. We have had golf play later in the years because of this change in the weather patterns and things like that. But at this time, we do need this additional appropriation, like I said, by law, to bring this out of the red and get this account back in the black. So.
Thank you, Councilman. Now we'll have the formal public hearing. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this ordinance?
Kathy Stransky, 223 East Barker Ave. I was wondering before the next budget if there could be a workshop where the public could be invited to come see the expenses of the park department, how it runs, how it operates, how we predict what they're going to spend, and how it all works overall. The membership, the fees, everything. Is there a way that can be open to the public so we can see?
I will answer that. All budget hearings are open to the public.
Okay.
Budget hearings start in September, mid-September, in that time frame, and anyone from the public can sit through the total budget hearing, which takes about a week and a half.
Okay,
So you're more
thank
than
you.
welcome to come. Mr. Warwick?
Rob Warwick, 411 Belden. I come to talk about the park department's request for money for the golf courses. Whether you're a golfer or not, hopefully you can kind of see where I'm coming from with some of these information I've got written down on my notes. If you don't know, Michigan City has 2 golf courses, a south course and a north course. The south course was established in the 30s, north course in the 70s. So they've been around for a while, roughly 90 years for the south course and 50 years for the north course. Lots of taxpayer money is put into the parks and playgrounds, and I'm all for that. But the only thing is, I can't slide down the slide or go on the swings anymore, so that's my playground. That golf course is my playground. That's where I go to enjoy myself and have recreation. just like the little kids go to they go to the playgrounds in Gardena where you live, Mr. Bredolinski, and they finished up did a great job at the Gardena Park. So that money that's requested for the golf course is just as when the money was put in Gardena, money going to put in my playground. I'm just going to give you ideas that the golf course is very valuable to Michigan City for the community because of the outings that they do out there, the golf outings that raise money for the nonprofit groups and the organizations. And I've got a list here. I'm going to read them. They just had one Wednesday for the Range of Life. The Boys and Girls Club, they have a golf outing for the Boys and Girls Club they raise money for. Pat Mack, it's a brain cancer research that they raise money for. The Drifters Scholarships, they raise money there. Patch Harbor Scholarships was raised there with a golf outing. St. Stan's Athletic Department raises money for their school there. Decoys, they have a golf outing there that raises money for the Salvation Army. Once they pay their bills, all the rest of the money is donated to the Salvation Army. Caddyshackers Golf League, they raise money for Toys for Tots with their golf. Squat Post 451 Veterans, they raise money for the veterans groups. They have a golf outing out there. LaPorte Junior Tour, they raise money for the junior golfers. Moose Lodge 980 does it for Moose Heart. They raise money for Moose Heart. I know the previous Mayor Oberly, did many golf outings out there and for fundraisers for nonprofit groups and organizations also. And our current mayor, for the past 7 years, I'll read you some of the ones that he has raised money for. Over $70,000 has been raised with golf outings there that he has put on. Essence Rare, Michigan City Area Schools, the social status for African American males, the police youth leaders, the Young People's Theater, Michigan City Education Preservation Foundation, Soul Steppers, Michigan City Athletics, the Homeward Bound, Michigan City Zoological Society. Michiana Humane Society is the one recipient for this year that he's going to put on September the 13th, I believe. Even though it's Friday the 13th, I think he's going to do a good job there because, as you can see, for the past 7 years that he's had, it's about $8,000 that he's raising for each one of these worthy recipients. Who also benefits from the golf course out there? You have Michigan City and Marquette High Schools. They have their boys and girls golf teams play there and practice there with matches. Matter of fact, today I worked the North Course. Today I had a bus come in from South Bend. It was South Bend Adams girls golf team came there to practice because they have a match tomorrow. They came there to practice because the coach, he's been for the past 3 years there. He loves that North Course because it's a great course for his girls to get their golf game in gear. The rate for golf for juniors, that's 21 and under, is $6 to play golf there. $6 to play golf there. Now, you can't go to a movies for $6, but you can play golf all day out there. You can drop the juniors, whatever, you have your kids, whatever, grandkids, they go out there and play golf for $6. I'm just making some points that how important and valuable that golf course is. I know Mother Nature, with the rain we had earlier in the year, beat up the golf course. It beat up a lot of golf courses. Not only Michigan City, it beat up a lot of golf courses. You talk to all the golf courses in this area, they really had a tough time with Mother Nature, and you can't control it. I don't care, climate control, whatever, President of the United States, whoever, or anybody in this audience, you're not going to control the climate and the Mother Nature. You just deal with it. It's an outside venue that has to deal with the weather. So I just hope the council sees some of my points I'm raising tonight, because I know everybody watches the Nicholson Dimes and why should it go there? I believe whether you're a golfer or not, that's an asset for the Michigan City people, is that golf course. Like I mentioned, all those organizations and nonprofit groups that I mentioned benefited from the golfers. I'll make one last point. Congratulations, or great job that Randy Durham the superintendent out there is doing with his crew to keep the course in great shape with all that bad weather and rain, because it was in bad shape. I can be honest, it was in bad shape if you haven't been out there. And also with Chris Magnuson and Jared Christensen, they're doing a great job with the headaches they got, because, you know, when the course closes, they're not selling anything, and just no revenues coming in, period. So hopefully the council and the public can see some of the points I raised tonight, that the golf course is here to stay for many, many, many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warwick, for your great points. Well taken. Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this ordinance? Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this ordinance? Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this ordinance? Formal public hearing is now closed. Any council comments?
I just
Councilman?
have one comment. It seems like there's a lot of activity and a lot of utilization of the course going on. And it makes me wonder, are the rates comparable to what other courses are charging for the operation budget to be going in the red with all this activity going on? I don't know what a normal junior day of golfing is, but $6. If that's competitive, I understand, but I don't know if there's a way to adjust the rates to make it more profitable, maybe.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other council comments? I have a comment, and I will back up what Mr. Warwick was saying as far as the importance of the golf course to Michigan City. It is another physical activity opportunity for people to go and play golf. Whether you're a great golfer or just a mediocre golfer, it still gets people out, and physical fitness is the key to being healthy, and everyone knows that. And both the South Course and the North Course are great courses to play, and it's just another part of what you want to call the Michigan City recreation program. Just like you have basketball courts that are for folks to play basketball, you have playgrounds, you have Little League baseball, you have Little League basketball, and whatever the activity is. Golf is another avenue for folks to be able to get physical activity. And the $125,000, the way I understand it, it's not just going to go to the golf course to help them make it through this year. They'll be able to use that money over a period of time on other activities and other improvements. Is that correct, Superintendent? Okay, thank you. So myself, there's no question in my mind that I will be supporting this ordinance, and I hope my fellow colleagues feel the same way. Any other council comments? Having none, this will be held over to our next council meeting for third reading. Our next ordinance on second reading, Ms. Nyla, by title only without objection.
An ordinance on second reading by title only, approving additional appropriation in the budget of the Boyd Development Fund to provide funding for purchase of decorative trash receptacle for the city of Michigan City. And this is introduced by Mr. Beatrice.
And does the author have anything he would like to add at this time?
I had some things, but I think Mr. Cuss covered everything I would have said, so I'm fine.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. We will have a formal public hearing this evening on this ordinance. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this ordinance? Anyone from the public wish to speak on this ordinance?
Hi, my name is Alina Yersaida, 125 East Harrison Street. On July 20th, in the News Dispatch, I saw an article where $30,000 was going to be taken from the Boyd Development Fund for the decorative trash cans. And so on August 1st, I sent the council and Mr. Cuss and some others my disagreement on the amount that was being spent. I did a little bit of research, and I saw that Today, as a matter of fact, I submitted 4 other quotes, one of which is from what's called globalindustrial.com. They work with municipalities to give government discounts. And what's great about them is that not only did they come in for half of what Mr. Cuss was wanting to spend for the 40 garbage cans, but when you sign up for their program, everyone in the city can utilize that number, meaning if the park department needed something, then everyone would utilize the discount. When I handed out the quotes, the quote that I got for the 40 garbage cans was $14,964, and I think Mr. Cuss's quote was almost $30,000. I'm hoping that you consider this company and look further into it. I can certainly look into it. The more research I do, the more that I can find it cheaper. I gave the pictures of the trash cans that I found that were very similar to the ones that the city liked. They're very comparative. And I also sent pictures of the different trash cans around the city. And the reason why I chose these particular trash cans is because not only did the sanitary department look those up, but the trash cans throughout the city are all different. And so I didn't pay attention to one specific can. I just paid attention to the most decorative style throughout the city. So when you look over the quotes, please consider globalindustrial.com for the trash cans, because it could save the money or the city half of the expense that Mr. Cuss has stated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And generally, I don't do this, make comments during the meeting. Usually wait till council comments, but I don't know if you're going to be here at the end of the council meeting. But what I'd like you to do is, if you would, give me the specific information that you have. You don't have to give it to me now.
I actually gave it to you. I have 4 sheets up there.
Is it all in the packet here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Then what I'll do is I'm going to talk to Mr. Cuss and give him the information. I don't know if you pass that information on to him or not, but I'll pass this information on to him and let him research it some more to see if possibly there is something there.
And I'm sorry, I had one more question. In the paper, it says that the funds were going to come from the Boyd Development Fund. Mm-hmm. And during the Finance Committee meeting, it was said that they would come from Michigan City funds. And I believe it was you that actually asked why at that time they would come from the funds, because he had stated that, Mr. Cuss had stated that he had funds in his department, which now I've received a letter that those funds are not there. So I just wanted clarification on where exactly the funds for the trash can would be coming from.
And I will answer that. They're coming from the Boyd Development Fund. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your research. That's great. That's great. Okay. Moving on. Anyone else wish to speak on this ordinance? Anyone else wish to speak on this ordinance? All right, public hearing is now over. Any further council comments? Any further council comments? All right, this ordinance will be held over for third reading at our next council meeting. And our next ordinance on second reading by title only, Ms. Nyla, without objection.
An ordinance on second reading by title only, amending section 2-457 B2B2 and Section 2-459B1D in the Michigan City Municipal Code to recognize that the community activists of Northern Indiana is known as Minority Health Partners of LaPorte County, Indiana. And this is introduced by Mr. Simmons.
Yeah, are there any comments from the author?
This is just a name change. Some time ago, LaPorte County merged with Lake County, and there was a difference of opinions between the two entities, and LaPorte decided to sever the relationship. So they're presently changing the name from Community Advocates of Northern Indiana to Minority Health Partners of LaPorte County, Indiana.
Thank you, Councilman Simmons. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this ordinance? Anyone from the public wishes to speak on this ordinance? Anyone from the public wishes to speak on this ordinance? Any council comments? Any council comments? Any council comments? This ordinance will be held over for third reading at our next council meeting. Our next ordinance on second reading, Ms. Nyla, by title only without objection.
An ordinance on second reading by title only, approving additional appropriation in the budget of the Riverboat Fund for overtime costs incurred by the Michigan City Police Department. And this is introduced by Mr. Hamilton and co-sponsored by Mr. Preselinski.
And this evening, we will have a formal public hearing on this ordinance. And does Councilman Hamilton have anything that he'd like to add at this time? I don't have anything that I'd like to add at this time. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this ordinance?
Rodney McCormick, 617 Union Street, Michigan City. I travel around Michigan City a lot, and I notice the Michigan City Police Department is always hiding behind buildings and stores and bushes for hours at a time. All this stuff has been documented. It's on my Facebook page. You can read it. You can see it. You can see it with your own eyes. We got close to 100 police officers now, somewhere in that neighborhood up there. Why? If you get more police officers, you should have less overtime, or it shouldn't even be occurring. I don't understand what's going on and why they need more money to do nothing. We have about 15 unsolved murders in our community. They haven't done nothing. They want overtime. They just chased me yesterday on a golf cart. You got the mayor using the chief of police, the assistant chief of police, and the other director of police officers going all the way to Knox, Indiana. Did they get paid overtime for that? There was security for the mayor. Then they showed up at another one of my court hearings that had nothing to do with the mayor or the city of Michigan City. Is that the overtime they're getting? This is a lot. There's a lot of nonsense going on in this city. A lot. And if you pass that ordinance or whatever y'all gonna do with it, you should at least do a hiring freeze. Stop hiring these police officers. It's a waste of money. They're getting over. You paying for all their equipment and everything, they leave anyway. So I think you need to really study and ask Chief Swistek, to give you an itemized statement or a bill or something to show why they need all this overtime or what they're doing for all this overtime. I just don't know. The mayor's ball, they offered security up there because they said it was because of me. Did he get paid overtime for that? You might be just cheaper buying me out. Then maybe y'all won't need all this overtime.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this ordinance?
Kathy Stransky, 223 Sparker Ave. At the request last week or 2 weeks ago when he came in, he said that they had joined another task force from Illinois that followed drug dealers through Indiana, and Michigan City had officers participating, that was something they had chose to do, and he didn't have money in the budget, and he was coming back to get money to cover that. Shouldn't it be the police department coming here to get money before they spend it, as opposed to after they spend it?
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this ordinance? Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this ordinance? Public hearing is now over. Any council comments on the overtime? Any council comments? Any council comments? This ordinance will be held over for third reading at our next council meeting. And Ms. Nyla, our next ordinance on second reading by title only, without objection, please.
An ordinance on second reading by title only, creating Article 15 in Chapter 22 entitled Landlord Registration Program and Rental Safety Inspection and Verification Program. And this is introduced by Ms. Carnes and co-sponsored by Mr. Dabney and Ms. Silvis. And this was tabled from the July 16th meeting until this evening.
And would the three sponsors wish to add anything at this time? Councilwoman Carnes?
I would like to make a motion to amend the ordinance. The two items that I mentioned in the meeting minutes from the Planning and Zoning Committee. And additionally, also, y'all have a copy of these amendments. And on page 8, some clarifying language put in the table referring to defective paint conditions as prohibited by section 22-832 of the City Building Code. So I would make that motion to amend.
I'll support.
Councilwoman Carnes, what did you say, the second? Oh, there it is.
The page 8.
All right. Okay, there's been a motion and a second
Who was it second by?
to,
Okay,
pardon?
thank you.
Yeah, there's been a motion and a second to make amendments to the ordinance. One is to take out the whereas, lastly, the city of Michigan City has been awarded $2.3 million lead-based paint hazard reduction program to increase the amount of lead-safe housing, including rental properties in the city. And whereas said lead grant requires the city to maintain a list of lead-safe properties within the city. And then that other amendment is to add as prohibited by section 22-832 of the city building code. Correct? Councilwoman?
Yes, there's also an additional one that was in the minutes that changes a person residing within a 50-mile radius of Michigan City authorized to manage the rental unit. It's changing it from residing in Indiana.
Okay. What page is that on? Let me ask. Oh, there it is. Page 2. Page 2. I see it. Okay. All right, and then the third one is a person residing within a 50-mile radius of Michigan City is authorized to manage the rental unit. Okay. The amendments have been proposed and read, and there's been a motion and a second. Is there anyone from the public who wish to speak on the amendments?
Caitlin Farrell, 417 Gardena Street. I'm speaking on behalf of Organized and United Residents of Michigan City. Our MC believes that all residents deserve housing that is safe and habitable, and because of that, it is our position that the ordinance needs to be tabled in order to make important and necessary amendments. We understand that this ordinance is a strategy to enforce existing codes that makes rental properties safe, and not a beautification project as some landlords would have you believe. Being a landlord is a business, and the product is housing. If they cannot ensure that their product is safe for the consumer, then they do not deserve to remain in business. RMC is supportive of instituting a comprehensive and fair rental inspection program, which is why we would like to bring to the attention of the council some measures that we believe need to be addressed in this ordinance that are currently missing, including mold. The Institute of Medicine, IOM, has linked indoor exposure to mold with upper respiratory tract symptoms, cough and wheeze in otherwise healthy people and those with asthma symptoms. Landlords should be required to repair issues with a high probability of leading to mold growth in a rental unit. The city has already previously adopted the International Property Maintenance Code, IPMC, which includes mold as a hazard. We believe this needs to cover measures for displacement. During the course of these inspections, it is a possibility that some residents or families may be displaced if the violation renders the home unlivable during construction or remediation. We require a safety net for tenants who are displaced either temporarily, for repairs, or permanently in extremely severe cases of condemnation. And finally, we want to know what the rollout strategy is, if there's going to be a tiered rollout strategy. We believe we should start inspections with rental units who have already been the subject of tenant complaints. Obviously, the city must incorporate 2 additional code enforcers into the budget, so we would like to know what the plan for that is as well. We aren't demanding beautifully landscaped properties. We are simply asking that tenants and their children are not left living in rental units that expose them to life or health-threatening conditions, and that if they are forced out of their homes, they do not have to rely on the charity of others to keep a roof over their head. We look forward to pulling in tenants and other community members to ensure this ordinance is comprehensive and fair as it moves forward. And we stand firm in our stance that it is an obligation and imperative for you as officials elected by the people of Michigan City to ensure a foundation for housing that is safe and healthy. We stand with the roughly 50% of Michigan City residents who are renters, not with the slumlords who maximize profit by minimizing spending on property maintenance. And we think you should, and we think you should too. We look forward to your vote of support when this ordinance comes back on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. And the ordinance is back on the agenda. It came off the table and it's back on the agenda tonight. That's why we're... Oh, okay. All right. Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this ordinance?
Rodney McCormick, 617 Union Street. This past Friday, we had the displeasure of helping a tenant out who was wrongfully evicted. She had 9 kids. No emergency housing available. And I read some of the ordinance. I didn't read all of it. And I kind of agree with them that there's nothing in there that protects the renter. If these people come in, you do an inspection, they say that these people cannot live in this house. Who's going to pay for them to be moved over to somewhere or for other additional housing for them? This mother had 9 kids, nowhere to go. She was living in a house that the windows was actually boarded up. So if there was a fire, they couldn't even get out the building. They couldn't even get out the house. The landlord name is Kevin Box. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with him. He's his demeanor, his attitude was very terrible towards this young lady. Whatever you do, I think you guys need to table this ordinance also and give more people a chance to come out to some workshops or make it to where go outside of City Hall. Let the renters know that you care about them. Renters have a lot of problems here in Michigan City. I did not know things was this bad in Michigan City at all. So if this person, she was displaced. She's still being forced to pay rent. She has to go to court. And we went through all these agencies. HUD is a joke. The Michigan City Housing Authority is a joke. I find it disturbing. You took a project, you took a 119 unit project, housing projects down right here on Michigan Boulevard. Not one of those units was replaced. It's catching up with us. We have to find affordable housing for people. And everybody in the city, I don't care who you are, you deserve to live in better than what I've been seeing. Running water, broken glass, rats, grass not cut, landlord talking to you any kind of way. And the saddest part about it is the 53% of the people that live check to check or don't even have a check. They are forced to give these landlords a ransom to stay into their apartments. You should see these places. They are taking advantage of our people. You people are the city council. A lot of y'all losing y'all seats. A lot of y'all going on about your way. And good. It's time for us to fight for the people. It's time for you to fight for the people.
Thank you, sir.
Jim LaRocco, 230 Twin Road. You know, we always talk about bringing business to Michigan City. One of the biggest business groups we have in Michigan City are who? The landlords. Okay, that's one thing we got to remember. Do the tenants need to be taken care of? Yes. Maybe we need to step back, get a tenant's bill of rights, get a whistleblower ordinance for the people that live in these apartments that are substandard, and hold the people's feet to the fire through something like that. We have ordinances on the books, like the young lady mentioned, court enforcement. If you have to hire more court enforcement officers to take care of this problem, then do it. Weed out the bad ones. We don't need another layer of government. The best government is a small government. Thanks.
Michael Stevens. I own the property at 320 East 8th Street in Michigan City and a number of others in the Elston Grove district. All my properties are Victorian buildings. I've restored all of them myself. I painted every inch inside and out of each of these buildings. I'll try to be brief. I hope you don't mind. I brought some notes to try to be concise. As I mentioned at the workshop, and to address the other gentleman's point, there have been, as the council knows, 2 workshops already scheduled where people have had a chance to speak their minds. I'm an attorney who has practiced in the area of real estate and business law, as well as other areas, for 39 years. I'm aware of the issues in this ordinance and what people want on both sides. I was the first president of the Landlords Association when it was formed. I am no longer in that position, but I've been a landlord in Michigan City for 20 years. I made the point at the first workshop that, in my opinion, this ordinance as written is unconstitutional and unenforceable. I don't say this to be cavalier, and again, this is only my opinion. Now, I won't go into great detail because of time constraints now as to why I feel that way, but I'll give you 2 examples shortly as to the unconstitutionality. There was a woman from South Bend at the workshop. I don't believe she's here tonight, unless she is. Okay. She said she had written the ordinance, and several people in the audience said that because an ordinance similar to this has been addressed twice by the Indiana Supreme Court, that this is a done deal as far as the law is concerned. And they were fairly certain that whatever the council passes, the Indiana Supreme Court would back them up. There has been a suggested cost of adding 2 additional inspectors of approximately $100,000. And to that cost, I would think that you'd have to add at least $50,000 in legal fees to defend a case which could go that far and possibly even farther, because the issues for this particular ordinance are not entirely addressed by what the Indiana Supreme Court said previously. Now, the notion that it is necessary to protect the health and safety of rental lessees, but not necessary for property owners and short-term renters, especially short-term renters, is at a minimum inconsistent. I could use stronger language, but I won't. There's an argument about health and safety. If we're really talking about health and safety, then we should be talking about the health and safety of everybody. But nobody in this room would suggest that an ordinance would have favor that allowed the inspection department to walk into the home of an individual who is not a landlord, who owns his home, whenever the inspection department wants to, which is, in essence, what this ordinance provides. Now, I am familiar with some of the individuals in the inspection department, and I spoke to Sue about this, and she readily admitted before our workshop, and I've generally enjoyed a good relationship with her, that the main thrust of this ordinance, as far as they're concerned, is to allow them to get into apartments and houses which they are not by law currently allowed to get into. Well, to echo what the representatives at the workshops, and I'm sure a number of council members have heard already, the law exists right now to give these code enforcement individuals access to everything that this ordinance provides them, except for one situation. If they want to inspect the outside, they're allowed to inspect the outside and walk around. If they want to inspect the inside, all they need is an invitation. You can call it a complaint, but an invitation from a lessee to walk into their premises and inspect the premises. Now, I want to raise a very important point that was raised at one of the workshops. I don't own a gun myself. I don't know how many of my tenants now own weapons. Hopefully, they're all, the ones who do, own them legally. But hypothetically, if this is passed, we could have a situation where code enforcement wants to enter the premises and the landlord has agreed to allow code enforcement to enter the premises, and the tenant does not want, for one reason or another, code enforcement to enter their premises. In this situation, are we going to have to call the police every time the entry into this apartment is sought? God knows what could transpire if somebody is standing in front of the door and a tenant, even a tenant who might have had a good relationship with his landlord previously, has other ideas about who's allowed to enter his abode. Now, tenants are not always cognizant of what their rights are or not, but there is a belief within tenants that no one has a right to enter their premises without their permission. To get to some specifics, the ordinance provides for fines and penalties both in rem and in personam. I don't want to get into a lot of legalese, but in personam means a judgment against a person. In rem means a judgment against a thing. So an in rem judgment would be against the building, for example. In personam is against the person, the individual. Now, in the preamble or the early sections of the proposed ordinance, it talks about LLCs as if it's some kind of poisonous entity. Well, LLCs and corporations exist to protect the personal assets of the people who have invested in these properties. And if the property, as a technical matter, is owned by an LLC or a corporation, which is perfectly legal, the city cannot enforce a judgment against the individual who owns that, who may appear to own the property, but if in fact the LLC or the corporation owns the property, they cannot get a personal judgment against that individual. The judgment has to be against the corporation or the LLC. We're not going to get into the collection aspects and the difficulties in that, but I want you to understand the distinction. You cannot simply say, because someone is the landlord and you see him around all the time, that you can get a personal judgment against him. Even up to, in this statute, $7,500 a week, which is the actual amount that could be allowed. The ordinance requires a statement that all real estate taxes are paid. I would bet that everyone on this council knows that the city council has no ability to force people to pay their real estate taxes. They have no more of an ability than they could force people to pay their federal income taxes. So putting this in the statute is absolutely unenforceable. You say, well, they're not really trying to collect the taxes, they're just trying to make sure that they're paid. Well, you can see the distinction without a difference there. The landlords have to sign, presumably under oath, that their real estate taxes are paid. If they're not all paid, and they say they are, then technically they could be prosecuted for perjury for submitting this statement. If they aren't paid and they submit the form, then by this ordinance, the enforcement department has the right to proceed against them for a, quote, violation of the ordinance because their real estate taxes aren't paid. Now, to get to more specifics about unconstitutionality, when a case is brought for an injunctive remedy, injunction, and this is in the statute, the first question that any judge will ask when you're seeking an injunction is there an adequate remedy at law? I cannot stress enough that the law as it exists today allows the enforcement department to do everything that they are allowed to do under this statute, with one exception. The exception is that if they do not have an invitation to go into the premises and they want to go into the premises, they are entitled to obtain a warrant. This is called due process of law in the Constitution. And under due process of law, a judge has to make a ruling on whether there's a basis. This is not just true of a warrant here, but any kind of warrant. A judge has to decide if a warrant is necessary. And there are times when a warrant is necessary. And let me stop right here and say, both in my past position as president of the association and in all the years I've been in the business, I am not in favor of some landlords either. And there were people in our organization previously, and I'm not part of that organization now, but there were people in the organization who did not take care of their buildings. And we, the landlords who want to provide a decent place for our tenants to live and be able to have some kind of return on our investment, we don't want the perception to exist that Michigan City is full of slum landlords. The biggest problem, as I mentioned in the workshop, when tenants come to me, and I've had tenants who've been with me 10, 12, 15 years, the biggest problem when new tenants come to me is they said there isn't enough decent housing in Michigan City available for them to choose from. This is especially true of young people. I'm urging you tonight to please consider that, because we are the ones, and not all the landlords are here tonight, but we are the ones who are providing housing for the future of Michigan City, for people who cannot afford to buy a house yet, but want to live in Michigan City and contribute to our economy. Please allow us to do this without tying our hands or threatening us with the notion that the enforcement department has a right to enter our premises whenever they want. In case I have to state the obvious, as to the warrant situation, this means that the law requires a judicial decision of whether the city has a right to enter a dwelling without the owner or the occupant's permission, absent an invitation. Any tenant, any person who feels that they're living in a place which is substandard can simply contact the code enforcement department and ask them to come in and review the premises. And if they write up a list of potential violations, the law is that those violations are given to the landlord and he or she has an opportunity to address that. If they don't, there are other remedies that exist for that. Now, no one in this room could possibly suggest that adding 2 inspectors is going to facilitate the work that is necessary to enforce this particular ordinance. We're talking about inspection certificates for every single rental property in Michigan City. And even though it's a 4-year or a 5-year or a 1-year certificate, it is impossible for the department as it exists today, even with 2 additional inspectors, to accommodate every single inspection certificate which potentially could exist, and that's assuming that all the landlords complied with the request. Finally, I'm sorry to say that some of us who have spoken out against the ordinance have suffered retaliation from the Code Enforcement Department as a result of speaking our mind. Unfortunately, this is par for the course in Michigan City. We don't talk about this in council meetings, but this is what happens. This ordinance is important enough to me because I wanted to speak my mind, and it's been a long time since I spoke at a council hearing. It's important enough to me to make our point. All the money that we put in, all my buildings are in Elston Grove, all the money that we put into the rejuvenation of the Elston Grove district, all the people coming in on Friday nights now, not just in the summer, but the rest of the year as well, all the festivals, everything else which is being used to promote Michigan City and to give it new life, could potentially go down the toilet if the number of available apartments available for new residents, especially young people, isn't there. And I'm sorry to say that most of my colleagues are a lot closer to my age than they are to the young lady who spoke eloquently before for the tenants. And we only have 2 options: to try to persevere and do our best, or simply to sell and let these places go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead, ma'am.
Alina Yersaida, 125 East Harrison Street. I just had a quick question. I heard a comment being made about displacement of renters. My only question is renters insurance. It costs about $100, $150 a year. You can work out with tenants on a discount or with landlords on a discount. I was wondering if that discussion has been brought to the table about incorporating that into the monthly fee for the landlords. I didn't hear anything about it, so that's why I'm asking.
All right, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, at this time, if somebody answered it, that's fine, but we don't get into a Q&A during public comment. Yes, sir.
Mark Sherman, 810 Cedar Street. I own numerous properties in this town. I don't have any rentals that I wouldn't live in myself or my grandkids or anybody else. We have a problem with a few bad landlords. The thing of it is, we have ordinances that we're writing ordinances over and over again. We keep wanting you keep wanting us to register. We register for vacant buildings. We register fire code. Now this, you just as well take and turn around and say, well, if you own anything here, you got to register with the city. The problem is, when you go to court here, you talk about if the tenants complain, they're going to get evicted. Well, if you've been through the judge in the eviction court, that's not going to happen. It's illegal to evict somebody for making a valid complaint. And the judge won't do it. If that tenant has paid half his rent, you cannot evict him. If the tenant keeps coming to me month after month paying half his rent, I'm stuck with that. I'm stuck with the loss. I'm stuck with the damage. Again, this writes completely against the bulk of us that are trying to do good, and it does nothing to make everything work together. We're not South Bend. We're not Chicago. We're not Valparaiso. We're Michigan City. We're 27,000 people. Again, we have the codes in place, and this is crazy to just keep writing more ordinances to to go along with other. We have one that I very seldom see that's enforced now. Blue tarps on buildings. Remember that? I got a church with blue tarps finally rotted off the building. I've got a house next to me, the blue tarps are rotting off the building. You do these codes and well, not codes, but the ordinances, and it's all a bunch of posturing. And you come after the ones that live here because I live here and I'm doing something, you're going to reach out and touch me. You know what? I can find these people that you can't find. You tell me who they are, what the addresses are, and I'll tell you what, next week I'll have you who owns those properties. And that's the people we need to go after, not the people here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ron.
Hi, I'm Bob Bellamy. I've been a landlord for 35 years. I'm one of the larger landlords in Michigan City. I keep hearing about tenants are afraid to complain. You know, we have a court system here. These tenants can take the landlord to court for not fixing properties that they would like fixed up and break the lease through court. When I have a problem with a tenant, that's what I do. I have to go to court. I think it's pretty simple. Let these tenants take the landlords to court. Also, living in Indiana or a 50-mile radius really limits the pool of investors that you'll bring into Michigan City. I just sold a house in Elston Grove to a gentleman that lives on the Gold Coast of Chicago. What's going to happen to this guy now? What's he going to do with his property? These are the people you want to bring into Michigan City, the ones with the money, because there's not much here. And by the way, I know South Bend did this. I remember many years ago, we followed something else South Bend did, and we ended up with Franklin Square.
So, Robert Johnson, 106 Garden Trail. I've rattled about this for a long time, so you're probably going to hear a lot of repeat stuff for anybody in the audience who hasn't heard it, but I just got to address some of the kind of crazy stuff that's coming from behind me. So we know there's a high amount of low-income renters in the city, but this guy's solution is that they should hire a lawyer and go to court to solve their rental problem so they can break their lease. Obviously, people want housing. They don't want to beat the landlord in court, and they're going to hire a lawyer to fight you? Yeah, okay. Small claims court, renowned for getting what you want out of it. Yeah. So what this is... Yeah. What this is in the state of Indiana, they established the Safe Building Code and they said figure out how to enforce it yourself. This is common practice in the state of Indiana. The state government's been very bad at taking care of you localities. They do this to the counties, where we have the health code, and then they leave it to the counties, figure out how to enforce it yourself. As such, we have kind of a lousy system, and you guys have to do a lot of creative work at the ground level to figure out what to do with it. So that's all this is just the basic playing out of how to figure out how to enforce the law. Just real quick though, landlords don't provide housing unless you've been building anything, you just own it. If you sold it, you'd sell it to another landlord or to a homeowner, which this guy says is good, so just let's clarify some of that stuff. There's been some pretty dishonest stuff about the order of operations. As I've heard this explained, pretty much what happens is if I'm a renter and I make a complaint about my landlord, as the gentleman said, he'll get a letter. It says, you've had this complaint on this unit. The next thing the landlord does is evict that tenant. And so then when code enforcement comes out and says, you've got a problem with a rental, he goes, I don't have a rental, nobody lives here. This is how it works. So either Councilwoman Carnes is lying and code enforcement is lying and this is all a big scam to hurt landlords, or people who are materially benefiting, making thousands of dollars off of unsafe housing are lying. I think I know which one it is. Somebody's getting rich off of this and somebody's trying to fix it. Look around the city. We all know one of the biggest problems if you look around the city is deteriorated housing. We know there hasn't been any progress. We know that since 2008, when people lost their homes in foreclosures, what those mostly were was snapped up by landlords who do not take care of them, but rent them out and make a lot of money off of it. We know there's a class of people who are making a lot off of predatorily renting to people who don't have anywhere else to go. The gentleman's right. There is a shortage of affordable housing in the city, and they know it. People will choose to have a roof over their head even if it's not safe, and they'll be quiet about it because the alternative is being on the street. Those of us at RMC started looking into this the minute it came up, and we immediately found like message boards between landlords where they talk about the business. And quite quickly what was found out is that these are the most profitable forms of rental. Is you buy a house, you buy it for cheap. Imagine a tax sale, $12,000. You're paying nothing on it a month, you don't repair it, but you get $400 a month in rent. It's just 100% profit. So this is the thing. This is the main way that cities are addressing this problem in Indiana. It's the main way that cities are coming up with enforcing the building code. And you know you've got thousands of renters in the city who are suffering with this. So you guys have the chance right now to decide whose interests you represent. A handful of business owners who are interested in stuffing a ton of money in their pockets, or thousands of people who see somewhere safe to live. Oh, it's funny, yeah, it's humorous. I advise you to, like, what Mr. McCormick said about this housing is true. Ask anybody in social service what it's like to live in some parts of this city. It's not funny. It's not even remotely funny. So you can either choose to do something about this or not. Maybe this isn't the way it's going to work out, but then you have to figure out a way. If landlords are interested in providing housing, maybe the city does need to provide public housing like they used to or more. Maybe these landlords would like a public option to compete with. There's other ways to play this, but housing is necessary, and we have to start doing something about it. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Ernie Hallahan. I live at 302 Gladys Street. I have two rentals. One is right next door to me. The other one is kitty-cornered across the alley from me. I bought the one next door to me because of the reason of this ordinance. It's a little one-bedroom house. One old lady lived there by herself until she moved, and she sold it. There were 7 people living in that house. There was what? Yeah, 4 adults, 3 children in a little one-bedroom house. And I mean, it's little. So I had to put a privacy fence up between my house and that house. They drove me nuts until they finally moved and got out. And I bought it just to control who is in there. I had to completely redo the place because it was totally destroyed. I spent 2 years working on that, redoing it. And the one across the alley was a HUD house. It sat empty for I don't know how long. And you was collecting no tax on that one. And that's $1.5 lot there. So I'm paying property tax on that one, and my house, and the house next door to me. So you're getting 3 property tax from me. You pass this ordinance, I'll get rid of these houses, I'll sell my house too, and I'll go to the country or somewhere. Because I'm just about fed up with Michigan City. I worked here all my life. I was a welder for 41 years. And anywhere I went, I lost a pension. I'm 71 years old. I'm retired from the school system, where I lost a pension because they outsourced us before I got my 10 years there. So these 2 properties are my compensation for a pension that I never got. I don't charge a lot of rent. And the people are very happy living in my 2 rentals. One girl's by herself. She works at Life Care out there. She's been there, I'm guessing, probably over 10 years now. And anytime either one of them find a problem, I go and fix it. If I can't fix it, I have a contractor come and do it. I have a contractor coming to put new gutters up on the one across the alley on them now. It has gutters on it, but I'm getting too old to get up on that roof and clean them gutters. So I'm having new gutters with the guards on them, so I don't have to climb that roof anymore. I done fell once off of it. I don't need. But that is why I bought these places. For my peace and subsidize my Social Security. Because I watched my dad live off of Social Security alone, and that was it. That was tough for him. Now, my question is, are these apartment houses, like tall timbers, going to be included in this? I've been in some of those apartments. I can tell you they're not good. Is that going to be included in this ordinance?
Like I said, sir, we don't get into the question.
I understand. That's just a question I'm putting to you. Consider that. Yeah. Yeah. Mr. Simmons is he's in my ward. I've been in contact with him. But don't do this to me, because let me live my life out. And my wife can either continue renting those when I'm gone, or she can sell them. But if there's any problems with my apartments, I will fix them. I will not be a slumlord. I totally disagree with that gentleman, what he says. Not everybody in Michigan City that rents is that way. You may have a handful, but there are other ways you can resolve that issue. Those tenants have a right to come to the city and complain about their living conditions. So you have that right. Don't penalize every landlord for a couple or a handful. Thank you.
Deborah Williams, I own 2 properties in Michigan City. I've been a landlord for 30 years. This isn't the first time I've been in front of the City Council or the Board of Works. When we look at this ordinance, what disturbs me is we have all of this already in our building and building code ordinance. We just have to enforce it. Just a little history. 2007, I fought the Board of Works and the City Council for a year and a half to get a building on the boulevard brought up to code. That same building is being worked on continually for 12 years. They did nothing. The inspection department went out, electrical, building, all of them went out and inspected this house, came back and said, oh, it's habitable. Funny thing is, there was no utilities turned on at this building. No water, no electric, no gas. How can you say it's habitable? So I fault the city with the conditions we have on the rental properties, not us landlords. Identifying, you've got number 3 on here, identifying the landlords. Very difficult. Go to the assessor's office and get a hard copy. I do it all the time. Contact these landlords. You know who they are. You know what houses need to be addressed. Address them. Quit sitting behind your desk and making up new ordinances and get your job done. In our meeting we had, Ms. Carnes said, I said, how is this going to help you find those slum landlords, as we call them? And she said, oh, we know who they are. Do you know who they are or not? Because if you know who they are, go after them. You say you need to get into the homes if there's an emergency. That's why you need us all to register. Well, if there's an emergency, that department has ways to deal with their emergency. if it's a fire department's gonna go in. They're not gonna wait to make a phone call to me and say, yeah, it's okay if you go in there and fight my fire. Or a flood, or a police issue. Back to the gentleman, the attorney back there, one thing he said was that if I say it's okay to come in, my tenant doesn't want you to come in, no, you can't call the police. They will not force themselves in that building because that tenant has a right to that building. Once that tenant signs on the bottom line, you accept a contract with them and they move in, that is their property. I cannot go in there unless they let me. I could give them 24-hour notice, but if I come knocking on that door, I cannot go in. That is Indiana law. You say it's difficult to hold neglectful landlords accountable. Why? You have a city attorney. I'm sure you have attorneys on every department. Get them out from behind the desk, shuffle them papers, and get them do a job for you. You need a warrant to get into a house? Have the attorneys go into court and get a warrant to go into the house. You know what that house looks on the outside, and you couldn't believe anybody lived inside that house, then you know what it looks like inside. Do your job. How is this costing you money and public health? We have a public health department. It's called the Port County Public Health. Work with them in conjunction to go into these homes and remedy the situations. If you believe these tenants are going to be evicted because they file a complaint, why don't you give them a little support? If they come to you and say, oh, I'm going to court, my landlord's going to evict me, send an attorney with them. Let the judge know why they're being evicted, and they won't be evicted. There's many ways to solve these issues without having us sign another ordinance. There is a smoke detector ordinance with the fire department, and I wonder who's even registered. We registered. My husband worked there and he retired from there, so we registered. They don't come out to see if I have smoke detectors. I'm just registered. So, we've got Chapter 22, Building and Building Code Ordinances that are not being enforced. We got a city code for the fire department, not being enforced. Now you're going to do this. Is this just a job creator? Is this just a way to get money put into the coffers so that you can willy-nilly decide what you want to do with the money? Okay? You need to carry through on what you've already got. And maybe if you do that, we might be a little more receptive to this. No, I don't want people living in substandard houses. And believe me, I've been a landlord for 30 years. I don't make a lot of money. Many, many times I've had to stick into my pocket, into my household budget to keep my rentals up to par. Because I didn't have a rental. I got to keep it up. I got to pay taxes. I got to pay insurance. I have to fix things. One lady or gentleman back there said, I make my units as if I would live in them. Boy, wouldn't it be great if every single landlord in this city would do that, but they don't. And believe me, you can ask any of us back here. We could give you a list of slum landlords and the addresses. Why don't you come talk to us, the ones who are in the trenches in this business, and let us help you figure out how to get to these people. But when I took a year and a half, every 2 weeks coming to the Board of Works, and absolutely nothing was done, what makes me believe that this is going to make any changes? This should be tabled indefinitely. There should be committees on how to address the existing building codes and get the inspection department to do their job. I know they're working hard. They do need more inspectors, but we also need you to do it the legal way. This is not the legal way.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Alicia Ortiz and I'm from Portage, Indiana. And I am here to tell
Kim,
you...
Excuse me, ma'am. Did you hear that? Can you speak a little louder, ma'am?
My name's Alicia Ortiz and I'm here from Portage, Indiana. And I'm here to let you know from an investor side what South Bend ordinance is doing to the city. I am sure you've heard from the city side. I invest there. I've invested there since 2007. I had 19 rentals. I have sold them all. When this rental inspection passed in the city, there were 15 rental turnkey investment properties listed. The next week it went to 150, and there were times it was up to 300. Your good landlords are leaving that city. The ones that are staying and trying to do right, 84% of their rentals have failed. There's only, by Judy Fox's standards and her Judy Fox's saying, there's only 5 to 6 bad landlords in the city of South Bend. But 84% of the rentals have failed. They have shut down 2 HUD apartment buildings. They have not passed. You're talking about creating more affordable housing. This is taking away from housing over in that city. And as soon as the out-of-town investors who are buying these turnkey properties, because they are so cheap, as soon as the investors are finding out all the hoops they have to jump through, they put them up for sale again, and they're gone. Because their money is good anywhere in the country, and they're taking it to cities where the city is going to work with investors. So, and thank you for letting me speak. I just wanted you to know what it was like from what's actually going on in the city, not what their great ordinance is doing. It's making people homeless when they displace them.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, George Ladon, 9511 South, 100 West. I went to 2 workshops and got, and also bought the IPMC book with regard to what would be enforced. And on the inspection level, I see many scenarios where, I don't know, I think I'm considered a pretty good landlord. The inspection department would say they have not had any problems with me. A few of them that, just to bring to your attention on what's to be enforced, deals with what type of garbage can shall be in the home, which will be only metal with a tightly fitting lid, 15 to 30 gallons. And then a note on number 3, every garbage storage container is cleaned at least weekly. That's in the code. So there's that. I also looked at with regard to the screening, that every door that is opening from the exterior to the interior of the home from May through October must have a screen. I have over 50 units here in town, and most of them don't have storm doors, don't have screen doors. And the reason for it is the wind catches it and it tears it off. And I do have screens on all my windows, but that is one of the parts of this that you say I have to have a screen door in every single exterior door that leads to the outside. That's part of this ordinance. I also will note, I don't know, the one that was given to me did not have the requirement which was in the book that I purchased about abandoned cars and the need for the inspector to see registration and that they're movable, that they're not immobile, and that nobody's working on any cars in any state of disrepair, substantial disassembly. I was assured that with regard to the smoke detectors, that unless you're doing a major remodel, you will not need to interconnect them. But part of this book says you will need to do that unless there is, if there is an attic and crawl space or basement available that could provide access. Well, Sue told me, no, we're not doing that, but that would be her opinion as the inspector at this time. But if you're going to follow this ordinance and you're going to follow the IPMC guidebook, at any time, the next inspector's idea of what is to be and what is not to be will be changed. So I just like to say that if I encourage the enforcement of what you have, but if you get into doing things like washing a garbage can every week and screen doors on every exterior door, that is going to be problematic. And there's also an issue with at no time shall there be any greasy film around the kitchen. You know, every time I rent a place, it's clean and it's ready to go. I take pictures of it. Sometimes it lasts and people are taking care of it, but sometimes there is a greasy film accumulating. And so is this going to be where I need to go in ahead of time and tell the tenant, look, you got to get this cleaned up, or I have to do it after it was already given at that point, clean? Do I have to go in there and say, look, did you wash your garbage can this week? You know, all of it gets to be very much, you know, on the plate of a landlord. But I would just hope you would take that under consideration to enforce what you have now, go after the people that you have a problem with, because thus far I've been very happy here in Michigan City. The clientele is good. I have good tenants. And I have very good word of mouth. I don't even have to advertise. People are calling me. But the way that this is written, it's going to inhibit me looking at any more investment in the city. So I do hope you table it and instead, you know, use what's already on the books. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Debbie McDonald. My address is 313 Beverly Court. Can you hear me? I just want to stand up today. I am a tenant. No, I'm not a 20 or 30-year-old, but I am a tenant. And I'm not well versed on the ordinance that everyone's talking about today, but I'm here to stand on some type of amendment to the ordinance for the landlords on behalf of renters who pay the rent on time, never late, keep the property up, and then their landlord still evicts them because they make one complaint on something. And I've been I've been back in Michigan City for almost 20 years, and I have run into this situation over 2 to 3 times. And it's just something that the city really needs to deal with the landlords when they have tenants who are paying the rent and they're keeping their property up, and if they make any kind of complaints, they are given a notice to leave. And no, I don't have money to go and get attorneys because I need to find somewhere to live. I have 3 to 4 jobs. I don't have time to go running backwards and forth. And there are a lot of other people out there like me. I just wanted to bring that to the attention of the city council. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Millie Rabbitine. I live at 118 Hancock Avenue. I wanted to address the lead-based grant that's out there. I know it's a federal grant, I believe.
Does this refer to the landlord?
Yes, I'm a landlord. But I did want to mention that there are a lot of funds that are left over and not used, and it should be, I think it'd be better utilized if all of the landlords would be able to have someone come in, because eventually you're going to have children move in at one point, or, you know, a low-income person at one point. That was just something that I thought I'd put out there in case somebody knew the lead-based representative, you know, of the grant. But I am a landlord here. I own several properties. I bought 2 units that were distressed, uninhabitable, put all of my money into it, and all the properties around the property that I, developed or upgraded have begun to blossom. They have improved their properties, around me. I haven't made a lot of money at this. I have worked with one tenant after another, and I have taken losses to help tenants. So I just think that, more restrictions and things like that that are not necessary, should be considered. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else from the public who wants to speak on this ordinance?
My name is Doug Sims. I'm representing the Northwest Indiana Landlords Association. 1810 Pine Street, Michigan City, Indiana. Considering the concerns that have been brought up to our attention as landlords, my organization would like to comment on this ordinance. After reviewing Michigan City Ordinances number 22 is pretty much everything you need to enforce the rules that you're trying to get passed in this ordinance. If you actually follow the city code that's in that legislation, I would say that if you need to hire additional personnel to be able to implement that, then please do. But considering that that's on your books right now, could you give me any statistics in regards to the implementation of the current ordinance? How many landlords have you went in and investigated, or how many tenants have complained under the current ordinance right now?
Yes, sir. We don't get into
Well, I'm sorry, but it's a question I'd like to ask because, we're considering this.
I can get that information for you.
Outstanding. The second thing I'd like to address is it legal? We're talking about me giving you permission to go in someone else's space that I've leased out to them. I think that we really need to consider the legality of that. I know that I have a copy of a Valparaiso news article that I'd like to distribute to the members of the council. In that article, it does address that the state legislators have placed certain limits on the local community's ability to inspect rental properties. And without a complaint or credible information about violation of a city ordinance, the city building inspector cannot inspect a rental unit. Further on, annual inspections of apartments are not allowed. In making changes, the city must also respect, balance the privacy acts of individuals, residents. Okay? So, really, I would think you might want to consider to get your lawyers to review this legislation before you have any more acts on it, and I would recommend it being tabled. Thank you.
My name is Sunil Dhoot, and I have a property at 608 Black Oak. And
Sir, if you would, for the clerk, just pronounce your name again and your address.
okay, my name is Sunil Dhoot, SUNILDHOOT, and I have a property at 608 Black Oak Drive. I live in Valparaiso.
We need your address.
My address is 2608 Pennington Drive in Valparaiso. And I know about the ordinance that Doug referred to it in Valpo about 10 years ago. They tried to pass an ordinance similar to this, where they also had that you had to register and give names of tenants and to the as part of the registration, and they went through a lot of discussion like this. In the end was that only a simple thing was done, that which was whoever had a property there had to register and give them their names. That was it. So if they needed to contact them, they knew who to contact, and that was it.
Hi, my name is Tony Lee, 8054 Diane Drive. I've just been sitting here listening because I've been a tenant before. I've owned property, and I also am a homeowner. But I have a problem just in how this meeting is ran. This gentleman just got up and spoke, and you demanded his address. But then this lawyer here, you never asked for his address, and a couple other people. You guys need to be consistent. If you're going to ask for one person's home address, you should ask for everybody's home address. I'm done.
What you have to realize is when we're talking tenants, landlords, and tenants, Kathy Stransky, 223 East Barker Ave. When you're talking landlords and tenants, you're talking storefronts with stores, you're talking the storage units that rent, you're talking houses that rent, apartments that rent. You're not just talking a group of landlords. You're talking many entities here in Michigan City. If you're going to do it right and you're going to be fair across the board.
Dwayne Perry, 2206 Maple Street, Michigan City. I'll say again, as I've been saying since 2013, that the International Property Maintenance Code needs to be removed from the city's usage and the Uniform Building Code be brought back. As I said, the Maintenance Code is a document that is very capable of being used as a weapon against property owners. Please consider that, whatever you do with this ordinance and property inspection. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Nathaniel Williams, 5534 West 300 North, LaPorte. I love the city. This city has been very good to me. I mean, if we're modeling after South Bend is the second most violent city in the state of Indiana. It's the seventh poorest city in the state of Indiana. Now, I know Michigan City is looking for a soul and a better future, okay? But, let's do this together. Let's not run people off, and this ordinance is not. I mean, you get a guy up here and he's denouncing and pointing fingers, and, come on, let's come in here and work together a little bit. Thank you.
Yeah, Bill Shaver, 2503 Oak Street here in Michigan City. There's a lot of emotion on this thing. It seems like there's two groups. There's a tenant group and there's a landlord group. And an ordinance that's supposed to cover the activities or involve both, it seems like the two groups are pretty far apart. A couple of meetings ago, I supported the need for regulation. But all the discussion in this has moved forward. I've kind of like moved into, not this one. My wife and I, we're not, we don't have like 50 properties like some of these folks have been talking about. We've been buying one or two properties a year for the last 6 or 7 years. We haven't sold any. We buy them. They're in pretty good shape, but whatever needs to be done, we fix them up. And so sometimes we've done as little as maybe $10,000 investment and as much as $60,000 investment on top of the purchase price. And we've never had a problem of any kind with the city. Listening to these folks over here and the young man that was here, it sounds like there's a group of landlords in here that in Michigan City that are really awful business people, and the city needs to address them. And they're speaking on behalf of tenants, and as many of the landlords have said, the tenants deserve to have a good place to live. But that's really the crux of the issue, I think, is that the tenant deserves a decent place to live, due process, and the landlords be able to make an investment and make a little money on their investment. There needs to be a way for that to happen. And my concern would be with this ordinance that you might solve the bad landlord situation. I don't know, maybe it will. But I don't think I am a bad landlord. But for now, my wife and I have decided let's not buy another property till we see how this plays out. That leads me to my biggest concern on this thing, on top of what everybody else has said, is that while it holds the landlords to performance, it doesn't require the city to really do anything. So if I buy a house and I remodel it and I notify the city that this is going to be a rental property and it needs to be inspected, there's no requirement for the city to get out there in any kind of a time frame to inspect it. And in the meantime, I've got a vacant property waiting to see when and if it's going to get inspected. I have a property on Superior Street. The city owns a retaining wall on Superior Street that is collapsing into the street. I notified the engineers department. It took about a week to get barricades set up. And that's on a safety issue. The property right next door to where I live, the ceiling is collapsing. It's been vacant for about 10 years. It took me 2 years of working with the city to get the guy who owns it to cut the grass. In the 2 years, I cut it myself. I think that this ordinance should be tabled and some work done on it so that it's thrust forward, addresses the issues that the city wants addressed, and doesn't get rid of the good landlords as collateral damage. If there's an urgent need to start and do something right away, well then a young man, he left, but one of the things he said was, look around the city. You can see substandard housing everywhere. He said that. And I know the inside of the house is going to look just like the outside of the house. So if you are driving around the city and you see all this, what he called substandard housing, the likelihood is it's fallen apart on the inside. And this, the tenant group could maybe reach out to the tenants and let the tenant of that property know they do have rights and they can be protected against whatever these lousy landlords are going to do to them. And you can start with the current laws on the books to address this problem and solve the immediate issue while you're working on a longer term, broader solution to regulation and registration. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Sunil Dut, just a comment on the restriction on
Sir, your name and address, please.
Sunil Dut, address 2608 Pennington Place, Valparaiso. There was originally the restriction that somebody would have to live in the state of Indiana, which was then changed to 50-mile radius. Now, where I live, it's 42 miles from here, and so 50 miles also would be rather restrictive because you can literally live in Illinois and be still able to manage.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this? Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this ordinance? Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this ordinance? Public comment is now closed. And we were also speaking on the amendments. And are there any council comments? Councilman Dammy?
Yeah, I understand all the concerns of the landlords. And I've talked to some, and you got some pretty good points. And from the very beginning, I actually said this could take some time until we get this into the best ordinance possible. But I am in favor of this going forward. You guys don't get the calls that I get as a councilman. Once again, I'm gonna go back to my neighborhood, the Eastport neighborhood. I have calls all the time in regards to this. So something has to be done. Something's going to be done. But I would like to slow this down and try to make this thing the best it could possibly be. But something has to be done. You don't get the phone calls that I get. And I'm going to give you an example. And I'm kind of going from the heart here, if you can hear it in my voice. I had a person that was living in the neighborhood down the street from me. They were calling me over and over and over, complaining about the landlord, would not fix the heat, would not take care of the electric, the gas was not working. The woman and her kids, she just left the house, took off, got another place to stay. Luckily, she was able to go and get somewhere else to stay. 2 days after she moved out of that house, it exploded. Right over there on Pleasant. I was standing in my living room and the house shook. I thought somebody ran their car into my house. That woman had been calling me over and over and over, complaining that she could not get help in regards to the issues that was happening in her house. So I understand the landlords, wanting to work this out, but this is where I come down with the people that live in my neighborhood and other neighborhoods as well that do rent, and we can work this out. We can work this out. If you don't think so, I'm sorry about that. But in my mind, I think this needs to move forward.
Any other comments by council people? Councilman Hamilton?
I just want the public to know that no matter how we vote on this next vote that's going to happen here in a few minutes, this is on the amendment, not on the ordinance. So everybody understands, and just because we may vote for the amendment does not mean that we will vote for the ordinance. So, thank you.
Okay, I have a couple comments on the amendments. Why, and I'm speaking to Councilwoman Carnes, why are you making the amendment that a person has to reside within 50 miles of the structure?
Because during the workshop, it was pointed out that living in Indiana was more restrictive, as close as we are to Michigan and also to the Chicago area. So that's why we went with the 50-mile radius.
Okay, and the other amendment for the paint for rental units built before 1978 with deteriorated surfaces, for example, chipping, peeling, caulking, cracking, or damaged paint, as prohibited by Section 22-832 of the Michigan City Building Code. The owner must complete the repairs to such surfaces using lead-safe practices in accordance with all applicable and state laws. And on the front part, under the whereas, we put, whereas lastly, the City of Michigan City has been awarded the $2.3 million on lead-based paint hazard reduction program to increase the amount of lead-safe housing. So what, and then whereas said lead grant requires the city to maintain a list of lead-safe properties. It seems to me like we were saying one thing and doing another, whereby we're eliminating houses that have to fall under the lead grant and get the work done. But then in this portion here, we're telling these people that they have to get that done, and it has to be approved by the city. Is that what you're saying?
No. The whereas clauses are not enforceable. They're just the reason for the ordinance. Right now, I don't know what the status is of our lead program, so I felt it was best not to conflate our lead program with the federal lead program that we recently got the grant for with this. As far as the addition on page 8, that was actually in response to Councilman Hamilton was concerned that this was adding additional requirements for landlords, when in fact this is code already. We do have something in our ordinance that states that paint must be easily cleanable and are reasonably smooth, clean, and tight. And so it was suggested by our council attorney that I add this clarifying language as prohibited by section 22-832 of the city building code to this, just to clarify that this was not an additional requirement, but just restating what currently is in effect.
Okay. Thank you for the explanation, but I can tell you right now, I do not agree with the 50-mile radius. I think it maybe hinders some landlords if they want to live 60 miles away, or if they want to live in Indianapolis or what have you. They should be able to live where I think they want to live, and as long as they get up here and take care of their property, I don't have any issue with that. So, those are council comments. With that being said, is there a motion?
No, we need a vote.
Pardon?
A vote on the amendment.
Yeah, okay, you're right. Okay, Council or Ms. Nyla, on the vote, please.
Ms. Carnes?
Aye.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Prespolinski?
Nay.
Ms. Silvas?
Aye.
Mr. Simmons?
Aye.
Mr. Stemley? Mr. Beatry?
Aye.
And Mr. Dabney?
Aye.
We have 8 in favor and 1 opposed.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Nyla, and this ordinance will be held over for third reading in our next council meeting. Our next ordinance on third reading by title only without objection, Ms. Nyla.
An ordinance on third reading by title only, approving additional appropriation in the budget of the local option income Lloyd Fund for the purchase of thermoscientific trunic handheld narcotic analyzer for Michigan City Police Department. And this is introduced by Mr. Prespolinski and Mr. Simmons.
And does Councilman Simmons have anything he'd like to add at this time?
No, it's just that they're making a wise purchase concerning officer safety.
Okay, thank you. I would like to add a few comments. What this does, it will keep our officers safe. The use of illicit narcotics and opioids continue to skyrocket in the United States. Emerging lethal drugs like fentanyl and carfentanil threaten public safety. To save lives and protect law enforcement officers, banded substances need to be identified quickly, safely, and accurately. The TrueNarc Analyzer rapidly identifies drug and can reduce the backlog of cases at crime labs while decreasing. This leads to quicker case resolution and helps drug offenders access treatment faster. With that being said, there was a formal public hearing held on July 16th. Is there anyone here in the public that wishes to speak on this ordinance? Anyone here in the public wishes to speak on this ordinance? Anyone from the public wishes to speak on this ordinance? Having none. Any council comments on this ordinance? Any council comments?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilman Hamilton and seconded by Councilman Simmons.
Support.
All right. Any other council comments? Ms. Nylam on the vote?
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Prespolinski?
Aye.
Ms. Silvas?
Aye.
Mr. Simmons?
Aye.
Mr. Stemley? Mr. Beatry?
Aye.
Mr. Dabney?
Aye.
And Ms. Carnes?
Aye.
We have 9 in favor and no one opposed.
All right, thanks, Ms. Nylam. Under new business, the Common Council has one appointment to the Youth Leadership Commission due to the resignation of Mr. Andre Dockery, and this appointment is to be nominated by a Michigan City community organization, and the term is for 1 year. And Councilman Fitzpatrick, I believe you have a nomination.
Yes, I did have an appointment from the Lubeznik Center, Miss Charity Smith, and all the paperwork has been submitted as well as the letter of recommendation from the Lubeznik Center approving her appointment by them. With no other nominations for this to replace Mr. Docker, I'd like to call for a vote.
Councilman Fitzpatrick has called for a vote, and the chair has no problem with that. Is that okay with the rest of the council members? Okay. All those in favor of voting for
Charity Smith.
Sherry Smith?
From the Lubeznik Center.
Okay, Cherry Smith from the Lubeznik Center, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Ms. Smith is on the Michigan City Youth Leadership Commission. Congratulations. FYI, Mayor Meir is requesting advice and consent of the members of the Michigan City Common Council regarding his reappointments of Ms. Laura Kalk and Ms. Connie Anderson as members of the Michigan City Tree Board. If the council feels to do so, we can go ahead and vote on those appointments this evening, if everyone's in favor of that. And all those in favor of voting for Ms. Laura Kalk and Ms. Connie Anderson to the Tree Board, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No opposition. So Ms. Laura Kalk and Ms. Connie Anderson are reappointed to the Michigan City Tree Board. Congratulations, Ms. Anderson. Mayor Meir is requesting the advice and consent of the members of the Michigan City Council regarding his appointment of Ms. Judy Lang as a member of the Michigan City Human Rights Commission. Ms. Lang will be replacing former member Sharon Wright. And if it's permissible with the council, that we go ahead and vote on this this appointment this evening. Is that okay with council members? All right, all those in favor of voting for Ms. Lang to be on the Human Rights Commission, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So Ms. Lang has been voted on and appointed to the Michigan City Human Rights Commission. And the FYI, the Common Council has one appointment to the Board of Zoning Appeals due to the resignation of Mr. Michael Johns. And that term expires December 31st, 2022. So for next meeting, we'll be taking nominations. If you have anyone that you'd like to nominate for the Board of Zoning Appeals, bring it to the next council meeting and nominate them, and we'll get them on the agenda for nomination and voting. Are there any comments from the public? Public comment portion of the meeting?
Yes, it's that guy. Rodney McCormick, 617 Union Street. About 8 months ago, I was arrested in front of City Hall, charged with intimidation. And the mayor said brought up a serious allegation about me. As you guys know, no such charges existed, and the state dismissed all cases against me. But he brought up a very serious issue. You guys have to get new security system here. We have, throughout all the testimony, we have no cameras in the hallways. We have no cameras down here. We have no cameras blanketing the city hall. If there was an actual shooter in this that had happened, there was no way to document or find out what's really going on. There's no way to keep a head count. It's sad. Some of y'all, I guess y'all take it for granted because some of y'all here know that Ryan Meir was lying. But it could have been a true statement. An actual event could happen. You guys need to put in a new security system with audio. Quit wasting everybody's time. I want to come down here and feel safe. I don't want to come down here and the mayor say, oh, he's threatening me. Another lie. Nobody should have to go through what I've been through again. I want to thank Candace Silvis, who came to my court hearing, and at least She was the only one that asked me what happened. She also filed for the body cam footage from all the officers that was there, about 18 of them. She was given a runaround. As of today's date, she still haven't gotten the body cam footage or the little videos, the 3 cameras, the 4 cameras that's around here. She still haven't gotten the footage. We couldn't even get the footage. It's a sad day. This cannot happen to anybody else ever again. I looked at you guys, you passed the ordinance for body cam. And it requires that all citizens must pay $150 for every body cam footage that they have. The mayor presented 15 of them, 15 or 18 of them at my hearing. Did he pay the city? Did the city get reimbursed? Did he pay the city the $150? They wouldn't even let Candace, they wouldn't let Ms. Silvers even get the body cam footage. She even tried to pay, she put in her request. The mayor didn't do none of this. You guys passed the ordinance. I seen your name on it, Mr. Beatree. Some other people's names was on it. I mean, this guy did this stuff, and that's what, almost $2,400, $2,300. He gets away with it. The complaint said, when Ron Muir filed for a protective order, it said Ronald S. Muir versus Rodney Joseph McCormick. It didn't say the city of Michigan City versus Rodney McCormick. And that brings up another question. Who paid for his legal fees? I'm a taxpayer. 617 Union Street. So I had to pay for the body cam footage. He got over. He got over. And when the body cam footage didn't benefit him, he just ran with it. He just basically ignored everything. We cannot allow people, no citizens, even you guys, y'all should feel safe down here. You should be able to come to City Hall and not be harassed or intimidated. A lot of you people know me here. I have never threatened anybody or said anything out of the way to nobody in here. And nor do I have nor will I. And in my last thing, I just want to say to Gail Nyla, I hope that you can answer this question or at least put the statement in the record if it's true or not. During my court hearing, Ron Muir stated that you came to him saying that I was intimidating you. I made you feel fearful and that you were scared and you wanted to make sure that I would not be able to come back to City Hall again. That's what he said in court in Knox. And we're friends. I know better to ask you this, but I just want to make sure the record reflects this so the people of this city can know what kind of mayor we have. Is that a true statement? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else from the public wish to speak?
Well, Nathaniel Williams, 5534 West 300 North, LaPorte. We live about 30 minutes from New Buffalo, Michigan. I've been in this town since 1974. Michigan City has been searching for a soul, searching for a direction. We could never get out of them, but we did the square 3 times, millions of dollars. We get the appearance of coming before the council and saying, oh, you get to voice your disposition and a position, and we're going to listen to you, and consider. What you guys do is you set the standard. The least amongst us, the people that have the least going for them, you say all landlords. And you wonder why Michigan City can never grow beyond mediocrity. We really won't.
Anyone else from the public wish to speak tonight? Anyone else from the public wish to speak? Anyone else from the public wish to speak? Public comment is now over, and it is now council comment time. Any council members wish to speak? Councilman Stimley?
I just wanted to make a couple statements. First of all, this past weekend or the past week before, on July 25th, I want to say thank you to the Lighthouse Museum for their annual Eastling Memorial, which they put on each and every year. And with last weekend too, with the boat race weekend, I think the Michigan City did a great job. The CVB, all the departments, organizations, and the volunteers that made that possible for this attraction of Michigan City, especially the Main Street organization, which puts on the Taste of Michigan City and all their hard work and volunteering. And a special thank to Arturo Pozo, who headed the event once again this year, and also being the liaison to the Main Street Association. They did do the banner project, which you see through the downtown area with the arts, and I want to thank Ryan Laughlin for doing that, making the city a better place with the 36 banners that they put up. Also, when it comes to the events last weekend, WHM race team graciously gave $10,000 to the Washington Park Zoological Society, which then they made $20,000. So we want to thank them for that. And also, LBS donated their winnings of $400 to donate to the Washington Park Zoo, and WHM also donated their winnings of $4,000 to the Big Cat exhibit. So, being president of the Zoological Society, I'd like to thank them for that. And I also seen that construction is underway of Phase 1 of the Singing Sands Trail, which I feel is very important to Michigan City, with a new national park connecting the national park to Washington Park. Thank you.
Any other council comments?
Yes.
Councilwoman Silvas.
A couple years ago, when we did implement the fees for the body cam footage, we did have a committee meeting regarding that. And at about that time, I can't remember exactly what committee meeting it was. I know I was there, Councilman Dabney, and we discussed charging individuals a fee to view body cam footage. Mm-hmm. And I remember Chief Swistek stating that he had no intentions of fining people who were actually involved in the incident of receiving their body cam footage. So, for example, in this situation, he had said that Mr. McCormick should not have been or would not be charged for this body cam footage. And I remember saying that I would, in good faith effort, support this, given that statement. And it's very disheartening to hear that you were charged for that body cam footage after what our police chief had said in that meeting. And that's all.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other council comments? As I promised, Mrs. Dalton, who is the chairperson of the Historic Review Board, she had sent a letter to all the council members, and I don't know if you sent it to the mayor or not, okay, and the mayor received a copy of this letter. Well, a quick synopsis, but I am going to read the letter, but just a quick synopsis for the folks that are here and folks that are listening on TV, is that in Elson Grove, they put in decorative light posts, and then back in the springtime, or not springtime, it was a month and a half ago, back in May. Well, yeah, we met with the Elson Grove area, and what was going on is they were changing the light bulbs out from metal halide lights to LED, and there was a controversy with the folks that lived in the Elson Grove area and then the other thing that happened is they took the globes off the bottom of the lights, and now the bottom of the lights are just flat, taking away the decorative type look of the lights. And I will agree. Well, let me read the letter, and then I'll give my comments, and any other council members can give their comments. And dear Mayor, members of the City Council and redevelopment committees, we are writing today regarding the recent removal of streetlight globes in the Elson Grove Historic District. Michigan City Ordinance 3013, 12-15-1987 states, the Commission shall be concerned with those elements of development, redevelopment, rehabilitation, and preservation that affect the visual quality in a historic district. The ordinance also requires a certificate of appropriation must be issued before work is begun involving any conspicuous changes within all areas of the historic district. The historic district guidelines adopted in 2016 specify the elements and environment throughout the Michigan City Historic District are also important and generally include drives, fencing, garages, accessory buildings, landscaping, lighting, parking lots, sidewalks, streets, distinctive and significant existing features, such as streetlights, are to be retained. A distinctive and significant feature, any change to the streetlights would require a COA application to be completed and placed on the agenda of the Historic Review Board for approval before work could begin. Removal of these globes without a COA or approval of the Historic Review Board is a direct violation of the ordinance and undermines the authority of this board. It also violates the residents in the neighborhood who follow the requirements of securing approval before making changes to the exteriors of their properties. While it is within the Historic Review Board's rights to request all the globes be reinstalled, we request a meeting be scheduled as soon as possible with the Historic Review Board, Mayor Meir, City Council members, Redevelopment Committee members, along with others who were in charge of this decision so that the matter can be resolved. And thank you for your consideration and cooperation, Joyce Dalton, President of the Historic Review Board. And I will say from my own perspective is that in organizing some of these meetings, some of the meetings that we had with the Historic Review Board, and talking to the residents down there, and I know no other council members has suggested it to me, otherwise I think we would have done it, to sit down and talk to the Historic Review Board about this ordinance and about the COA application that possibly should have been done. And I'm going to apologize for myself that we sidestepped the Historic Review Board. I don't know how the other council members feel, and I don't know if they feel as though we need to have a meeting with the Historic Review Board to maybe clear this up. Whether the globes are going to go back on or what have you. I don't know. Maybe I should talk to the city attorney and the council attorney and see how they feel about the council circumventing this ordinance to do what we did on our vote. And that I am going to do that as far as president of the council is talk to the city attorney, council attorney, get their opinion and move forward from there. And then I will get back to Mrs. Dalton and Miss Anderson. And then we can go from there. All right. And if any other council members want to comment on this, feel free. Any other comments on this subject matter? Councilman Beatrice?
Well, I don't know the answer to this question, and I'm not really asking it either. But I'm curious about whether the initial street light that had the globe in it ever was approved with the COA. You're saying it was? Okay. Thank you.
Do you have any comments on this subject? Okay, are there any other comments on this particular subject? Okay, so I will be getting back with the representatives and we'll go from there. Okay, you're welcome. And just a couple things. The NAACP had a rally at Pullman Field last Thursday to listen to the public and to re-energize the public with the NIPSCO rate increase that we were talking about back in February. That the city council put a resolution together, and we were the only city council in the NIPSCO rate area to do so, and then the city of Gary followed, the city of Hammond did it, and so on and so forth. But it was a good rally, kind of get you refocused on what's going on here. The Indiana Regulatory Commission is in the process of listening to this rate case. And I do have some good news, is that the original 12% that NIPSCO was looking for, it's been dropped down to 7%. But that's still not good enough. The magic number is 0. We don't want a rate increase. And it's not fair for 5 industries in the northern part of the state of Indiana that are going to get a 19% rate decrease while the consumers are going to get an increase. So just want to let you know about that. And there is going to be another rally, and I got there it is right here. I didn't lose it, Nancy. I didn't lose it. There's going to be another rally, and that's going to be Saturday, August the 31st, at the First Presbyterian Church down on Washington and 9th Street. So that'll be the last Saturday in August, the 31st, from 3 to 5 p.m. in the afternoon. So I believe that it would be beneficial for anybody that's against this rate increase to show up and show their support, because down in Indianapolis they will be making a decision probably within a month or two. So we got to keep up the heat on our folks down in Indianapolis. And I just want to thank the Main Street Association, like Councilman Stimley did, with their outstanding voluntary work that they do for the city, and they put on the taste of Michigan City, and they do it without any pay. It's all volunteer work, and I know that Abigail May is the president of the association this year, and I know there's other members. I don't want to mention all their names because I don't want to forget anybody, but they did a fantastic job, and I appreciate everything they do for Michigan City. And with that being said, I believe Councilman Hamilton wants to make a motion.
Motion to
For
adjourn.
adjournment. And is there a second?
Support.
Councilman Fitzpatrick, second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.